This is a fictional alternate timeline for entertainment. It's not news, not advocacy, and not a claim about real events. Trade lanes shifted, resources got bundled, money became a filter, tech split into two worlds, factories raced to build everything, and then infrastructure became strategic. Last episode was the defense reset, protect the arteries, or lose the tempo. And now we enter the part of the timeline that feels like a thriller, because the next battlefield isn't a border, it isn't a port gate, it isn't a tank, it's invisible. This is episode 8, The Cyber Shadow, Cold Open, 2:17 a.m. A security analyst stares at a graph that should be boring. Tiny spikes, normal noise, then one line goes wrong, not down, not up, wrong. A pattern appears that looks too clean to be accidental. The analyst leans forward, clicks into the logs, and sees the last thing you ever want to see in a critical system. Authentication success, unknown origin. They don't scream, they don't call the news. They do the only thing that matters. They start the clock. Because in this timeline, cyber isn't about stealing secrets. Cyber is about tempo. Slow the other system down. Make it doubt itself. Make it waste weeks. Auditing, patching, verifying. And if you can do that without leaving fingerprints, you can win without firing a shot. Here's the hook. In a world running at maximum output, the most expensive event is uncertainty. One suspicious login can trigger a cascade. Networks isolate, factories pause, payments slow, ports go to manual checks, insurance premiums jump, and CEOs freeze decisions. Not because they want to, because the risk becomes unknowable. An unknowable risk is poison for modern economies. So what happens in this fictional timeline? The cyber shadow arrives in 3 waves. Wave 1, the soft break. Nothing explodes. Nothing goes dark for days. It's smaller, smarter, crueler. A port scheduling system glitches for 15 minutes. A warehouse barcode system mislabels a batch. A routing algorithm sends trucks to the wrong gate. A payment queue slows for compliance review. A factory robot line pauses because a certificate needs verification. Each incident alone is survivable. Together, they feel like a haunting. And the worst part? They look like accidents. Now let's make it human. Picture a resident. They wake up late, open their phone, and something feels sticky. A checkout page spins longer than normal. A bank transfer shows pending. A delivery app changes the delivery window again. It's not a disaster, but it creates a feeling. The world is less reliable than it was yesterday, and reliability is the invisible glue of normal life. Now picture a factory manager. They are already running hot from the factory wave. They have deadlines stacked on deadlines. They cannot afford one day of downtime. Then an alert appears that says security policy updated, system restart required. They restart. The line comes back. 10 minutes later, another alert. Then another. The manager realizes what is happening. Someone is making them lose time. Not enough to be obvious, enough to be expensive. Now picture a cybersecurity worker. This is where the episode becomes a thriller, because the first rule of cyber defense is you never know if it is over. You isolate one system, and you might cut off production. You keep it online, and you might be letting something spread. So every decision is a trade-off between safety and continuity. And in this timeline, continuity is the whole game. Now, what does the super block do? It goes into continuity mode. Ports shift to stricter manual procedures. Factories segment networks. Payment rails add extra verification layers. Cloud systems tighten trust lists. Telecom providers raise alert levels. The system does not collapse. It hardens. But hardening has a cost. Speed drops, and speed is what the superblock built its advantage on. So here is the twist. The cyber shadow does not need to destroy anything. It just needs to force the system to slow itself down. Because if the system slows, investment hesitates, hiring pauses, expansion plans get delayed, and the wave turns from growth into caution. Now, what happens outside the block? Outsiders do the same thing. They harden too. They isolate too. They add checks too. And now both systems are running with friction. Two tech worlds become two paranoid worlds, and paranoia is expensive. Now, what about America in this fictional timeline? America reacts like a counter-thriller protagonist. Because America understands one crucial reality. In cyber, defense alone is not enough. So America does 4 things. 1. It builds redundancy at scale. Backup systems for payments, backup routing for logistics, backup capacity for cloud services. 2. It accelerates cyber intelligence sharing with allies, because pattern recognition is everything. 3. It pushes rapid patching and supply chain verification, because software isn't just software anymore, it's infrastructure. 4. It invests in deterrence, not in speeches, in capability. The message becomes, if you try to slow our arteries, you expose yours. Now we hit the emotional peak of episode 8. Residents don't understand cyber, they just feel the symptoms. Delays, glitches, a sense that something is off. Small businesses feel it as fear, because if payments slow or systems glitch, cash flow breaks first. Workers feel it as tension, because every delay becomes pressure on the front line, and cybersecurity teams feel it as exhaustion, because you can't sleep when the enemy is invisible. Now here comes the moment that turns this from a tech story into a thriller. A coordinated incident hits 3 places at once: a major port, a major data hub, and a major payments checkpoint. Not a blackout, a wobble. Just enough to trigger emergency protocols. And emergency protocols are the point, because when emergency mode activates, the system becomes slower, stricter, and more fragile. That's the cyber shadow's goal: make the system fight itself. Now, the biggest question of this episode, who is doing it? In this fictional timeline, the answer stays blurry, because in cyber, certainty is rare, and that is why it is terrifying. So instead of blaming a villain, the story focuses on consequence. When no one can prove who did it, everyone prepares for the worst. And preparing for the worst changes everything. It changes budgets, it changes laws, it changes what gets monitored, it changes what tools are allowed, it changes what systems are connected. In other words, it changes freedom. And that sets up the cliffhanger, because the next episode is not about cyber attacks. It is about what happens after. What happens when the world decides that reliability is worth any price? What happens when emergency rules become normal rules? Next episode is called The Control Shift, and this is where the timeline stops being about systems and starts being about society. If you want episode 9, hit like so YouTube knows you want the next part, and subscribe so you do not miss it when it drops. Tell me in the comments, would you rather live with more freedom or more reliability? Because in this timeline, you do not get both.